Welcome to Salcedo Paranormal. It is Friday, October 28th, 2022, and this is a bonus True Paranormal Stories from the Web show. As always, you can find all the links to the shows, along with links to social media, ways to donate, and ways to contact me at the podcast page, which is salcidoparanormal.podbean.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.podbean.com. Always happy to hear from you all, whether you have comments or questions, or topic suggestions, or stories of paranormal experiences, whether they're your own or from others that you trust. Happy to either read those or have you join me on the show to talk about them. And just a reminder, there will be another bonus show tomorrow night, same time, where I will be talking with Michael Strange from Troubled Minds Radio. And so that'll be fun. We're going to cover a certain topic, and you all find out what that is, unless I've already told you at that time. So, but it is definitely within the paranormal. So, yeah, that's the plan for tomorrow night. Sunday again will be the call-in show, usual time again, and it's just going to be all about what are your favorite paranormal media. What's your favorite books, comic books, movies, TV, anything related to that? Happy to talk with you all on that show. So that's the plan for Sunday, Halloween night. Derek, the Night Stalker, will be joining me to talk about the paranormal here in Michigan. So that should be fun. And then you may also hear me probably on Troubled Minds Radio that night as well. So it looks like it's going to be a fun weekend and favorite time of year. So always happy when we get to this time of year. So I believe that covers everything. So I can get to these stories here. And found these just a couple of hours ago now. And let me see here. Gotta just scroll up. Somehow it got scrolled down. And okay. All right. Here we go. This first story says, I was going to the bathroom when I heard running footsteps approach my dad's door from inside his room. I assumed it was him coming to tell me something before I left the hallway, but I had to go to the bathroom bad, so I rushed into the bathroom to avoid conversation. After I exited the bathroom, he didn't open his door to tell me something, which was odd. At first, I assumed he'd forgot what he was going to tell me, so I went to my room. Then it hit me how odd the situation was. So I checked to see if he was home by seeing if the car was outside. It was not. He was not home. He'd been out for hours. It says, before you ask, no, I didn't try to open his door. I might be stupid, it says, but not that stupid. It says he's got some freaky mannequin things in there, and I wasn't about to risk making eye contact with one. Which, that's a whole other topic in and of itself. Dolls and mannequins, and can those things become haunted as well? But really, just neat story about footsteps there. Of course, some people may jump to, well, it's someone that's coming after the experiencer, but when you take into account just residual energy of replaying past events, among other things, that it's hard to say what was the reason for that. Although I wonder, whenever they don't mention that there's any other activity in the place, I always wonder if that's just a one-time thing. Then that to me almost leads me to believe there was something like that, where it's just a residual thing or some kind of a time thing where they're just hearing the footsteps from some other point in time. And that's what happened possibly. So yeah, short story, but a neat one. I'm gonna read this next story, and then I'm gonna, because I forgot I had a experience earlier this week that I can talk about here. But let's see here. So I'll read this next story, and I'll cover that because the second story is kind of connected to the first one in a way. It says, in January of 2012, my aunt passed away unexpectedly. Her sister-in-law lived in the apartment next door, and that night, my aunt's daughter, my cousin, and I were sleeping over. We were woken up by her dad, my uncle, banging on the door to tell us about the news. After my aunt passed, they quickly began the process of moving out. But one day, my cousin asked if I could go inside with her to wait while she got something from her room. I said yes, and we went inside. And she went through the living room and down the hall to her room. I waited by the door and looked around the empty space that was the living room. And out of nowhere, I hear my aunt's bedroom door open and then close. Her footsteps, the bathroom door opening, and then the bathroom door shutting. I stood there, completely stunned, and waited silently for my cousin to come back to me. When she came back out to the living room, I quickly told her what happened, and she believed me but said she hadn't heard it. Her bedroom is right next to her mom's. We left the apartment, and I never went in there again. But also, I never felt my aunt's presence afterwards either. During that time, I had lost another aunt to cancer 2 months before this, and she also lived in the same apartment complex. And so I spent a lot of time in between those three homes, in those three apartments. And I know for certain that those footsteps were my aunt. I had those sounds memorized. I hope she's okay. And I wasn't scared, but I sure miss her. So another story, this one a little more personal, obviously, with footsteps. And what's neat about this one, though, is one person heard them and the sounds of the doors opening and closing, but the other person did not. So I always wonder how that works. If it's somehow focused on one person but not another, somehow through energy or whatever, or is it just a sensitivity that the one heard but the other didn't? Lots of possibilities, lots of questions there. So, but neat story. So, I've already talked about this in a voice chat here and there this week, but a few mornings ago, I was I was in a voice chat with some friends, and I just happened to look out around my corner of my computer desk here and into the living room because I felt something, and there was a shadow figure there, right by a switch on the wall that controlled an outlet, and it was there for a second or so, and then it faded, but I still had the sense of the presence being there for another couple of seconds before that faded as well. And I didn't feel anything bad, but it was just really a neat experience there. And so I don't know what that was. We've been talking about it, and it's been suggested that maybe somehow it was just me from a different time. Just being by that switch, because I had days before that, I had bumped into that switch and turned it off. And so there's energy right there, and that outlet and everything in that switch. So I don't know. Maybe it was someone else. Either way, they didn't stick around. So I'm not worried, but it was just really neat. I don't usually have a ton of sightings of things. Or at least I didn't used to. I guess I shouldn't say that now, considering the whole blue light set of experiences outside. But yeah, so it was pretty neat to have that sighting. So just wanted to throw that in there. And it's funny because again, while I was talking with friends just the other night, some of them hadn't heard me talk about it, and that we've been talking before, and they asked why I hadn't mentioned it, and I laughed a little bit because it's funny when you have one or two things happen per week, you just don't always think about it when you're talking with everybody that, oh, I forgot to tell everybody about this. So, um, it's just funny how that works out. But anyway, just figured I'd share that because I was going to tonight and I forgot to do that at the beginning. But anyway, so I have two more stories here to share. And let me see here. Let me get to this next one. This one says, when I was around 12 years old, excuse me, I was at my cousin's house for a party. Pretty sure it was around Christmas time. We were hanging out in their backyard and their woods. Part of their backyard is wooded area. And came to this tree, excuse me, that used to have a treehouse in it. All that was left of that treehouse was some steps leading to it and a few platforms. Not safe to get up if you can even at all. My cousin, 8-year-old boy at the time, told us this story about how the kids who had that treehouse had died when it collapsed. I personally thought this was a bunch of BS, but went with it. We eventually headed back to the house, but I decided to go back into the woods alone. As I was walking into the woods, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me, like I was safe there, safer than anywhere else. As I'm walking, I'm looking around, and I see a light blue and white checkered flag up in a super thin tree that I didn't notice before. As I'm looking at this and trying to figure out how it got there, I started to hear kids' voices, laughing, talking, just having fun. I didn't think too much of it at the time, as my cousins were out in the tree house, a new one they built, not the old rundown one. Let me see, I lost my spot. Okay. As I'm walking closer to the old treehouse, the voices seem louder, and I look back up at the flag. It was moving despite there not being any wind. I shook it off as I couldn't feel the wind from down here, but up there was wind, and looked back down. That's when I saw them. 6 children with white skin, like snow white skin. There was no snow on the ground, by the way. They all seemed to be wearing winter gear, though dull and dirty looking. They were walking towards me, but I didn't run. I wasn't afraid for some reason. I heard a branch snap, and that's when I ran. As I went back towards my cousin's house, I was surprised to see that they weren't outside. I found them in the living room, playing video games. When I asked them when they came in, they said, "When you were walking to the woods." Why? The kids I heard weren't them. I still don't know to this day who those kids were. They weren't other neighbor kids, as none of them lived close to my cousins. Were they a figment of my imagination? Whatever it was, it's one of the reasons I believe. So, that's an amazing story. I wonder what's going on there. With that apparition or the image and those sounds, that really is an odd one because on the one hand, it seems like if you want to believe in the story that the cousin told, maybe it could be the spirits of kids. But then also you have to consider that was an idea that was shared with the writer, and they didn't believe it. I wonder if I wonder how old that story is of that old treehouse and what happened to kids there. If it even never even happened. But again, going back to the idea that if enough people share and tell and then start believing in the same story, all of that energy from all those people, I wonder if it could manifest something. Um, but also, as I've said before, I know there can be a big pushback in some places against the idea of spirits of kids, and of course, it's always tragic when any child passes. But there's also the possibility that I think is overlooked that whether it's kids or adults, maybe they are their version of like a peaceful afterlife is lived out in this plane, in this world, in a location that meant a lot to them. So it's hard to know what was going on there, but that's audio visual. That's quite a situation there. So quite a story. But yeah. So I had to share that one, and thought it was really neat, interesting. Brings up a lot of questions. So, and I have one more story here to read. And thank you all for being here and listening, and for the live streams, but also to the YouTube and podcast feeds. And I really appreciate it. So let's see here. This one says, I saw this page and thought I'd put this here. Someone might find it interesting. I live in an apartment block. The doors are very heavy. If anyone is in the corridor, or if anyone in the corridor shuts a door, all the doors rattle and jolt. And just it's funny because I've been in places like that where the moving one door or one anything can cause things to vibrate and make other sounds across the building. So that is a thing. Anyway, it says, and I got used to it. If the people down the corridor are in and out of the kitchen, my door will make a brief rattle when their kitchen door shuts. It used to make me jump, but now I'm used to it. And it's it says it, and it's whatever. This wasn't what happened. I'll try and explain it. I was sitting at my desk, and my door starts rattling for no reason. There was no one in the corridor, no one in the kitchen, and no one has been outside for ages. It was completely quiet. These are fire doors. They either slam for half a second, or they stay silent. There's no in between. Anyway, I'm at my desk, and there's no one out there, and my door starts to jiggle. And I put it off as just living in not great accommodations. The rattling continued. It was getting louder and more violent. So I go outside to check. Motion sensor lights are off. No one's been in this corridor for ages. So I go back to my stuff, and it immediately starts again. And this goes on for 20 minutes. I checked about 3 times, and every time, nothing out there. I messaged the corridor and asked if anyone else had it, heard it. I'm guessing they mean. And they all said no. It was like someone was trying to get in, like pushing on the door and rattling the handle. These fire doors will only make noise if someone else slams the door down the hall, and then it'll jolt. But it'll never do this 20 minutes nonstop rattle that gets progressively more aggressive. After 20 minutes, it just suddenly stopped, and it's never happened since. Anyway, I thought it was a fun story, and maybe someone on this page would like it. So, I don't know how to explain that. Maybe some kind of energy or some kind of maybe possibly some being there. Um, I don't know. It is odd the way they describe it, especially with the motion lights not turning on. I've experienced that. I've talked before about this. How when I stayed at that training center for the blind, the second time I was there, I'd be in the one of the conference or TV rooms, and they had doors that you could see out into the hallway. Excuse me. And this one night, one of the last big night of activity there, part of it was I was hearing the sound of someone walking down the hallway using a white cane, tapping the floor, as one might do when they can't see very well and they're using it to navigate their surroundings. But when I looked up at the window that looked out into the hallway, the lights were never on. So, and that didn't make sense because at that point they were all motion activated or some kind of sensor that would turn on when people entered the hallway, and they weren't on. So that is really odd. And that was just sounds, but this story sounds like there's a physical object being moved as well. So I don't know for sure what was going on there. Again, maybe and I know I say this for every story, but it is a possibility. Some kind of overlay with time anomaly there. Maybe someone else had done that before or was going to do that later, and just happened that one time. It also reminds me of, again, one of my other experiences where I heard someone heading towards the door to the laundry room in the complex office building that also had the laundry room, and I could hear someone walking, and then the sound of like a cart, like a laundry cart, and someone outside said hello, and then all of a sudden there was this big bump that shook the door, but then nothing, no sound of the cart stopping or rolling back, no footsteps, no sound of anything falling. I got to the door real fast because I was kind of partly concerned. I mean, I thought maybe someone had run into the door, and I was worried they might hurt themselves, but I opened the door and nothing was there. And I was standing right next to the door, so it didn't take long at all to get there and open it. And that one especially could have been something like that, where it was just some other time and somehow intruded on this one, and then it was just gone. But I don't know. So neat story. I know I've brought up my experiences before in other shows and talked all about those. So, but it's funny how these things bring up memories of other things. These stories do that. So, but that is it for tonight. So, thank you all for listening. Again, I would recommend that you all come back tomorrow night, same time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific. And because it's always fun to have guests that are friends on here, and especially talking with Mike is always good as well. So thank you all for listening, and I'll talk to you all tomorrow night on the next episode of Salcedo Paranormal. Take care, everyone.